The first one is estimation of the renal net acid excretion by adults consuming diets containing variable amounts of protein. And you can see they have what are called NAE values, the net acid excretion values. And there are, the way that these are calculated, we don't have to go through the exact calculation, but it takes into account sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium chloride, phosphate, sulfate, and organic acids. Or specifically, it's a balance between the alkalinizing minerals that I was talking to you guys about and protein. There's one other paper which makes it a little bit easier to look at in terms of an equation that they actually talk about in the paper. And that is this paper. I will find it here. There's another paper, Potential Renal Acid Load of Foods and its Influence on pH. And basically what you'll see in the calculation of PRAL, which is the potential renal acid load, or the net acid excretion, the NAE, sometimes called the NEAC, is that we balance protein by including these alkalinizing minerals in our diet. So there's a couple of fascinating studies that I want to tell you guys about. Effect of a low carbohydrate, high protein diets on acid-base balance, stone forming propensity, and calcium metabolism. And so what they found in this study was that a baseline urine pH, which is a good indicator, was 6.09, which is usual. And it decreased to 5.56 when the amount of protein was increased in these people's diets without increasing the amount of calcium. This is what we want to avoid. But what we can take away from this study is that if we increase the amount of calcium in our diet commensurate with our intake of protein, we can normalize our urinary pH. And so how do people know if they're getting enough alkalinizing minerals on a carnivore diet or a carnivore-ish diet or in general? You can check your urinary pH and your serum bicarbonate. And I've observed the same thing in myself and my clients, that if someone is not getting enough calcium, magnesium, and potassium in their diet, the alkalinizing minerals, the urinary pH will drop. And I don't like to see urinary pH drop below 6. I don't like to see serum bicarb drop below 23 or 24. And so the body will buffer, and you can see these things happening. What's the solution? Calcium. Some people can tolerate dairy, which is a great source of calcium, or we can include a high mineral bone broth, which I will talk about how to make in a second. Interestingly, many people associate phosphorus as an anion, as a acid-inducing anion, but it's actually not the phosphorus. It's the cation, the proton that often comes with the phosphorus in different media. So in general, phosphorus intake is not acidic. I don't think milk is going to be super acidic, but if you look at the calculations of the PRAL, the PARL or the NEAC, cheese looks very acidic, milk not so much. Milk is actually going to provide some calcium to balance the phosphorus that is in it. And something about the composition of cheese, probably because it's higher protein than milk, maybe, I'd have to think about that, increases the acidity of the cheese relative to that. But what we need to do, the takeaway here from this study, what we saw was that people, this other one that I was just talking about, people had calcium of 889 milligrams. And when they increased their protein from 91 to 164 grams a day, which is about what we're probably going to do depending on our body weight, and their calcium stayed the same, it actually went down slightly to 805 with a standard deviation of 359, then the PRAL increased, the NEAC increased, the urinary pH decreased to 5.5. So that's interesting. So that's exactly what we don't want to happen. If we are going to increase the amount of protein in our diet, we can maintain acid-base balance by eating nose to tail, getting more calcium in our diet, either from dairy, if we tolerate it, or from a bone meal. If it's low lead bone meal, you got to have it tested. And I'll tell you guys, the one that I've generally used is Traditional Foods Market, or you can, the easier thing to do would be to get bones from somewhere you know are really good, like White Oak Pastures, and grind them up yourself, or make a bone broth, which should be simmered for 12 hours in an acidic medium.